Folks, this is the one and only Warwolf howling out at you. And we got a review for Dynamite this past Wednesday, May the 10th. I do apologize for missing out on last week's material. No real excuse. It was just a crazy week. But we got a hell of a show to review for you tonight. And quite frankly, I'm a little impressed and somewhat saddened by the fact that I called something several weeks ago that came to fruition this past Wednesday. So, let's deal with this as we go. And we're going to deal with it as we go because that is how we ride. Yeah, it's a horrible joke. So, first off, folks, before we do get into that, let me just say that we are dealing with basically a couple of major things happening in the next few weeks. Week after next, we are getting to Double or Nothing, which is what this entire show was based around building up to. So we have some pretty big events happening. So we started out with Claudio Castagnoli versus the one and only Rey Fenix. And holy shit, this was a big one. And again, folks, let me remind you, this was for Dynamite. So, yeah, that's a whole thing. So, yeah. Claudio and Fenix absolutely just rampaging, no pun intended, and this was not meant to be an advertisement for the upcoming Saturday show. We literally just had these guys just wrecking everything in their way. So let's get right down to it. We had some great moments here, including a beautiful moment off the top rope from our boy Rey Fenix with this absolutely gorgeous top rope Rana. And that's the only way I can put this. Is like, he literally did this move where he was basically on the left side of these ropes, jumped onto Claudio, and then did a Rana off of him. That's pretty damned impressive, to say the absolute least of this. We also got a top rope gut wrench. I'm not even kidding about this. So, when I first saw this, I was like, okay, he can't be thinking of doing what I think he's thinking of doing. But yeah, that is exactly what we got with this. I mean, this was gorgeous. You know? And I'd never seen anybody actually do it before. So, credit where it's due, I suppose. Credit where it's due. He got this handled. He got it done. Beautiful moment there. Now, this was, by the way, what they called a double jeopardy match, meaning that both Claudio's world title and Rey Fenix's World Tag Team Championship were going to have a new challenger at the end of this match. If Rey had won, he would have gotten the shot at the World Heavyweight title. If Claudio would have won, which he did, as a matter of fact, and he used the Ricola bomb, as I think they're calling it, and that basically gives him and a partner of his choice a shot at the World Tag Team titles. And, I mean, it was pretty damn impressive. So, let's talk about another major thing here. Now, I did not bother to get a screenshot of this because I really wasn't expecting it, but Miro is back. Now, Miro, of course, is the former Rusev, for anybody who's only just been watching WWE and has only just recently become aware of AEW, in which case I gotta ask, where have you been, under a rock? He is back and bald. Maybe he just decided he was done with the receding hairline. I don't know. Of course, can't even prove he actually had a receding hairline. Just looked like it to me. But yeah, he shows up, goes into Tony Khan's office. We don't know what they were going to talk about, but we will probably get some information about it over the next few weeks. Next, we get a video package. It is about MJF talking about the other 3 members of the Fatal 4-Way coming up on May the 28th at Double or Nothing. I love the build-up for this. Hang on a minute. Sorry about that. I'm eating breakfast, sort of, as I'm recording this because I slept in late. Anyway, so I love the build-up for this Fatal 4-Way. And I'm very impressed that I was able to predict it because this is one of the very few times AEW has really done something I was able to see coming. Come to think of it, there's something else I predicted back on the 29th, which I'll get to at the end of the show. So, I will say this, I'm a little amused and confused at MJF basically comparing himself and the other 3 pillars to the Beatles. So, okay, I mean, I was not really a fan of the Beatles. I was not a big fan of the music of the Beatles, but that doesn't mean I hated it, admittedly. I honestly never really heard a lot of their music. And I didn't grow up during the era of Beatlemania. I was born in 1980, so I had a very different cultural upbringing. But, okay. I have no idea what kind of life MJF led that he actually had the ability to draw any kind of parallels to the Beatles, but whatever. Then we get a hype package for the main event, and then it leads us into a promo. And who is that promo about? Well, not about who it's about, but rather who is in it. But let's just say it's a little hilarious. How is it hilarious? Well, we get FTR, actually. And I will say this is kind of funny. Like, FTR is a very, very serious duo, but it did kind of end up feeling... it felt more modern, I guess is the way I would best put that. Because normally they're very straightforward. They feel like they came out of the 70s, effectively. So, that's kind of interesting. So, what's next for them? Well, we know that Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal have been stumping for a title match. And it looks like they're going to get it, actually. But get this. The special guest referee for this is going to be none other than Mark Briscoe. Now, Mark Briscoe has been pretty much kind of at the center of this entire storyline because Jay Lethal and Mark Briscoe are longtime friends, as are Mark Briscoe and FTR. So it's kind of interesting to see how that's going to work out. And I don't know. I honestly do not know how that's going to work. And I've honestly got nothing here. Because when you get down to it, it's just kind of been a day. And this is, by the way, another rather unique match that we had here. That is from the World Trios title match. I wanted to bring this up because I love this moment where I think it was, I forget if it was Jim Ross or if it was Tony Schiavone who said it, but this had a very 70s look. So, yeah, that's a whole thing. But we got a promo from Chris Jericho regarding Adam Cole, where he basically stated, I've got like this court order that bans Adam Cole from the arena anytime I'm in the arena. Out comes Roderick Strong. Now, Roddy Strong is a longtime friend of Adam Cole. And he's like, hey, I'll take you on. I'll challenge you to a match. And he basically says, hey, do you have the guts? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll take you on. And then Roddy's proves to be just as canny as Jericho and goes, I went out and lawyered up too. The JAS is banned from the building. I thought that was probably one of the most hilarious moments of the night. Watching Jericho just flip through all this. So, it's pretty crazy. Now, we also got some rather interesting news here for the women's division. Thunder Rosa is back. Now, Thunder Rosa was forced to relinquish the AEW Women's World title due to an injury that put her out for several months. Anybody who's been watching AEW All Access knows that Britt Baker was kind of, getting annoyed over the fact that she literally wasn't able to wrestle. So, yeah, I mean, she was obviously very happy that, Thunder Rosa had to relinquish the belt, which obviously I kind of felt bad for Thunder Rosa about it because, she's dealing with this situation. And meanwhile, you got the other people in the women's division kind of celebrating that this woman's injury forced her to relinquish the belt. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't hate Britt Baker as a person in real life, but from the standpoint of her basically celebrating, oh, yay, Thunder Rosa had to relinquish the belt. Like, I'm sorry, that's kind of a dick move. I get that she felt like she was in a holding pattern and that so was the rest of the division, but I also have to point out that makes her a lot less professional than a lot of the men in the company, simply because when you look at it, we've had at least one or two cases of an interim world champion, and I've never once heard of the men complaining about it. Now, granted, we don't know what the situation was for Jon Moxley, who was at one point the interim world champion while Punk was out on injury or whatever the hell it was. But I don't know. I kind of feel like Britt was being a little unprofessional there, going, oh, it's not fair that she still got the belt. It's like she's out on injury, and her biggest complaint is, oh, well, we have to call it the interim women's world champion. I've yet to see the men's division have anybody complain about either an interim world champion or an interim TNT champion. I don't even think we have an interim TNT champion in the history of AEW, but we've had at least one interim world champion, at least. I got to go back and double check that, but yeah, either way. Thunder Rosa being back, for me, that's great news because I want to see her potentially end up just regaining the title that she never really lost. I'd love to see that. I've seen her in action. Her matches with Britt were fantastic. I want to see her with the championship again. Now, here's one of the few things that I sometimes find a little annoying. 1 second here. So, we got this rather unusual promo from the man himself, Tony Khan. And I'm a little annoyed by this because the announcement was that he has an upcoming announcement. So, he announced an announcement, but didn't give us the announcement. Stupid! I have no other way to put that other than remarkably stupid. Just tell us what it is you're going to announce. Don't tell us that you have an announcement coming up. If you're going to do that, then for the love of God, just have the announcers make that claim. So this way, the following week, we already know the announcement's coming up, but to have you be the one to announce that there's an upcoming announcement just kind of seems weird. Just announce whatever it is you're going to announce. I mean, it doesn't seem like it'd be that hard, right? I mean, am I really wrong here? I mean, am I completely off my rocker here on this one? Because I'd love to know. Somebody please, in the comments, tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about this one, because this is just friggin' weird. You know, having an announcement about an announcement. I can't imagine the logic behind that. I really can't. But either way, next we get the International Championship. That's up for grabs. Orange Cassidy taking on Danny Garcia. Probably one of my favorite moments in this entire thing was a moment that I never thought I'd see because I didn't know it could actually happen. So, one of the most standard moves in the world is the drop toe hold. Cassidy blocked it. I didn't even know you could block a drop toe hold. To the love of God, I would never have said this was possible. But Orange Cassidy has had a habit of surprising me with some of the stuff that he's pulled in the last 2-3 years since I started watching AEW, which of course has been the last 2-3 years since the company came into existence. So, yeah, he's kind of had a habit of surprising me. This is still weird. Like, just straight up weird. I don't know, man. Oh, boy. I will also say there's a moment, and I didn't get a chance to get a screen cap of it, but basically Danny Garcia, who's still playing up the whole I'm a sports entertainer thing, he basically did the putting hands in pockets moment from the normal kind of behavior we see from Orange Cassidy. So, okay, that kind of makes sense. I mean, you don't even have to be a quote-unquote sports entertainer in order to see that as a thing to do to get inside the head of your opponent. This is actually pretty smart in the sense of playing mind games, because if you can get inside your opponent's head, it works. Now, Orange Cassidy's hand is still a cause for concern. I don't know exactly what he did to his hand, but I do know that he is in a situation where that hand is becoming a liability. Danny Garcia was actually stomping on it a couple of times during the match, and it was only by sheer guts and determination, and probably the least expected form of victory for Orange Cassidy, using a modified roll-up to get the win, that he even retained the championship. So, we got a promo from the Outcasts on Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, and Hikaru Shida. That was still a weird situation the other week, and I don't know how to respond to that. Because I thought Shida had turned heel, but apparently that was a swerve? Figure that one out. I honestly... I don't know. I'm not overly sure that I have any real idea where that particular feud is going, because I'm not sure if I really have a favorite in that. But we do get Christian Cage and Luchasaurus coming down to the ring. Like, I'm still not sure how I feel about that pauldron on Luchasaurus, and I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen Christian in ring gear for a while. But, okay. So he comes out, cuts a promo, says like, he makes some comment about Wardlow's dad, which is meant to be a reference to the shots that he was taking at Jungle Boy Jack Perry's dad. So, yeah, kind of low, but what are you going to do? But it looks like this is being set for Double or Nothing. Okay. Now, does this mean we could see Christian Cage becoming the TNT champion? Yeah, it's very possible. In fact, with Luchasaurus basically in his corner, it is almost a given that Luchasaurus is going to get involved. Sorry about that, folks. I needed a drink. It's a given that he's going to get involved in some way, shape, or form during the match. We know that Arn Anderson will be in Wardlow's corner in all likelihood, but Is it going to work out? I don't think so, because we know that Luchasaurus could get physically involved and could even go after Arn, who is in no shape to really defend himself. Remember, Arn was forced to retire almost going on 35 years ago now. He basically was at a position in his life where he could not get back in the ring. He was forced to retire due to, I'm not even sure exactly, neck injury, spinal injury, whatever it was. It's been almost 30 years. I really don't remember the full details of this. But, yeah, he's in no shape to really defend himself. And I think, if anything, going after Arn would be a perfect way for Luchasaurus to really get in Wardlow's head and help Christian to win the championship. And for all we know, and this is potentially something that could happen, and I'm not going to say this is something that will happen, but this is a possibility. I could see Arn potentially turning on Wardlow and basically having this whole thing be, a plot by Christian, build up Wardlow's confidence, then have Arn do something to screw him, and thus get the TNT Championship off of him. And then he's got not just Luchasaurus as his personal minion, but then he's got Arn as a potential advisor. And again, Arn is no foolish man. Now, a couple of shots taken at Arn himself. I know a lot of people are saying, well, what about, the talking about being the other guy in the tag team with Tully Blanchard, or being Ric Flair's lapdog. Like, this almost feels like it would be a way to foreshadow the idea that he's going to turn on Wardlow. But again, it is a typical heel promo, so it could go either way. Then we get the third of our the second of our video packages building up the Fatal 4-Way match, where we get this rather unique video package, and we get this moment here. I don't know, I mean, that dog is just too goddamn cute. But we get to see Darby Allin and his father, or at least somebody who's playing his father. This isn't always the case that they use a real person's family, or a person's real family, I suppose I should say. I'm not grammatically accurate right now. I've only been up for about an hour. Please forgive me for anything weird here. But yeah, we find out that Darby has done some crazy shit in the ring, because he does even crazier stuff outside the ring. The guy has literally claimed he jumped off the roof of his house. So, basically, he pulled a Mick Foley. Okay. So, yeah, that's a thing. And I do like that we had this promo, because, again, it's nice to get a little bit of a look into the characters of these three wrestlers. Not necessarily their real lives, but definitely the characters they portray. The sad thing is, half the stuff that Darby was talking about, I could honestly see him having done. Including apparently driving a car off a jump ramp into another car. I don't see the logic or the reason to do that, but alright. Then we get a match continuing a feud between Julia Hart and Anna Jay, also known as Anna Jas. And this was basically a no-holds-barred street fight, for all intents and purposes. This was pretty damned impressive, too. So, I will say this. I like that they are letting the women do some of this crazy stuff, because we normally see, like, the men's division being the only ones who get to do this kind of stuff outside of things like, I don't know, Lucha Underground. But we've seen some great stuff from the women's division in AEW, and we got a lot more of it in this match between Julia and Anna. And I, for one, am absolutely thrilled to see them getting a chance to do all this crazy stuff. Because the women need to be able to, show the fans that they can do all the stuff that the men can do if they really want to be taken seriously as a viable roster. Because I'll be honest, the one thing I love about AEW's women's division is that they actually have a women's division. Say what you may about WWE having 2 women's world titles and a women's tag belt. The main problem I have is that for all the belts they have, they've got all of 6 women. Most of their women's division seems to spend most of their time on, what is that channel? E? On Total Divas or whatever the hell it is. But, yeah, I'm sorry. It's just their women's roster is almost non-existent at this point. So, yeah, that's a whole thing. And I love that AEW has a pretty, deep women's roster. Whether that's talent that's right there as part of the company or people they're bringing in from other promotions. AEW has really treated its women's division like it means something, and getting a chance to see a no-holds-barred match for the women's division, something I haven't really seen since the Lights Out match between Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa. I mean, this was great. I loved it. So Julia does win with a superplex and the heartless submission hold, but I don't think that feud is over. Then we get a rather hilarious, promo. And what is that promo? It is literally the Best Amigos. So we already know about the best friends. That's Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor and, of course, Orange Cassidy. But they got a partner for this particular little promo because they're calling themselves the Best Amigos because they are involved in a trios match against the House of Black. Apparently, which is kind of weird. And, again, this is where we got that 70s moment, which, again, it was kind of hilarious. So, the House of Black basically instituted this new set of rules for all their trios defenses. Now, I don't know if Tony Khan is letting them do this or if they're just so goddamn creepy that nobody in AEW's upper echelons, storyline-wise, wants to mess with them on this. But basically, they're doing what they call a house rules match, where basically, I'm trying to remember, disqualifications are enforced, there's a 20 count, and then the challengers get to pick whatever kind of other stipulation they want to add. All right, it is a little odd, but okay. It is weird, but what are you going to do? But what happened after the match... Now, the House of Black did retain via the use of the Dante's Inferno match. Dante's Inferno move, I should say. We got a rather interesting moment at the end of this, because after that, we got a rather unique moment after the House of Black had successfully retained the championships. We got Kyle Fletcher shown backstage attacking Orange Cassidy. Now, Orange Cassidy was apparently laid out because we see him on the ground, and then we see a hand reach for the International Championship. Kyle Fletcher picks it up, and he's holding the IWGP Championship and what I believe is the Never Openweight Championship. It's either the Never Openweight title or the Never Openweight Tag title. One of the two. I'll be honest, I was not able to really see too clearly what this belt was. I can't even be sure it's part of NJPW. But we do know he is, at the very least, one half of the World Tag Team Champions in New Japan, because he's got the IWGP Tag belt there in his left hand. So it looks like Orange has a new opponent potentially next week, or maybe even for the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. Wouldn't surprise me. It could also be a build-up to the next Forbidden Door event, which they have said is coming. So then we get... Sorry, folks. Still kind of eating breakfast. The third, or perhaps it's the fourth. Let me double check here. Yeah, this is the third one. I completely forgot. Sammy had a moment where he got a chance to discuss the Fatal 4-Way. And again, I thought it was very well done. I loved the build-up. And then we get Jungle Boy Jack Perry, or let's be honest, you call him Jungle Jack, it might as well fit just as easily. Now, again, Jungle Boy has been with the company since pretty much day one. And he cut this great promo about how he'd been training since he was 9. That's pretty damn impressive. And apparently his parents were entirely supportive of this. Now, I know nothing about Luke Perry, other than he was on Beverly Hills 90210, and briefly on the reboot before his unfortunate passing. But by all accounts, it sounds like he and his wife were completely supportive of Jack's desire to be a pro wrestler, because apparently they found a place for him to learn how to be a wrestler at the age of 9. Obviously, they probably made a point to, keep an eye out on him, make sure he didn't get too badly hurt. But apparently they did support him. And look where he is now. He's managed to make something of himself in the industry, and that's pretty damned impressive in and of itself. So Jungle Boy, again, if anybody is going to take the belt off of MJF in this Fatal 4-Way, I will be honest, I kind of want it to be Jungle Boy Jack Perry, just because it would kind of play into the story of, I was the son of a famous celebrity, but I chose to go my own path. I wanted to be a professional wrestler since I was 9, and I want to be the world champion because every wrestler worth his salt wants to be at the top of the business. So that makes a lot of sense, and I absolutely love it. Then we got a promo by Ricky Starks and Jay White, building up for another match, and then we finally get to the main event of the evening. And the main event, obviously, was Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega. Now, these two have basically been in a situation where they have been part of basically a stable conflict, where you've got the Blackpool Combat Club going after the Elite. And this match starts out before they even get into the cage. So they basically have a situation where Jon Moxley gets into the ring, the cage has already been lowered, here comes Omega. John just leaves the cage and goes right up the ramp to start the match outside the ring. And they start basically beating the living hell out of each other, well, outside the ring. And, you would think, okay, at some point the BCC is going to get involved, right? Well, yeah. And they did, in fact, get involved. What did they end up doing? Well, not much. Mostly because, we got to this point where we have the Young Bucks showing up to start basically making things a little bit more even. And they're still all fighting, up on the ramp and everything. So this is not a normal situation. Not at the absolute least on this, man. I mean, this is some crazy stuff. So we literally have these guys doing some absolutely crazy stuff, including a moment where I forget if it's Matt or Nick, but one of them basically took out Claudio and I believe it's Wheeler Yuta. Yes, Wheeler Yuta. Again, this is a little bit blurry. I can't remember if this is Matt or Nick, but basically Wheeler and Claudio ended up, off the ramp here, and here comes one of the Bucks, basically throwing himself off the top of that ramp in a high cross body. Pretty damn impressive. And if you thought that was crazy, honestly, if you thought that was crazy, oh, take a look at this. That is glass. Literally peppered all along the back of Jon Moxley, which he brought into the ring. He had apparently hidden it under the ring before the night started. Or at least storyline-wise, that's what happened. Now, I don't think this is legitimate glass. I pray to God this isn't legitimate glass. Some things you could probably pass off as that, but this is... if that's real glass, it's like, dude, Mox, we don't need you to kill yourself, please. But, yeah, this match was absolutely just everything they promised. They said it was going to be violent. It was absolutely violent. Look at this shot. This is basically Omega getting thrown into the cage wall. But if you think that was crazy, it gets crazier. How much crazier? Well, if you thought getting thrown into the cage was bad enough, well, what happens when you go through the cage? Because this is honestly what happened. And good God. What's even crazier is that Omega kind of got his foot caught up in this. But then we get to the moment that I said I had predicted sometime back. And honestly, at the time, I had kind of just thrown it out there as an idea of what could be happening based on what they were doing. But yeah, Don Callis has turned on the Elite. More specifically, he turned on Kenny Omega. Now, back on the 29th of March, I had suggested that there was a possibility that they were setting up for a Don Callis heel turn. At the time, I didn't entirely believe it because, well, the Elite weren't exactly, straight on faces, but, it would have made more sense than you would have thought. But here we go. Don Callis turning heel on the Elite, who were effectively the faces in this particular storyline. Now, I don't know what's been going on here. I don't know how long this was in the works. I don't know if storyline-wise this is supposed to be a recent thing. I don't know. I don't know. But this was a hell of a turn. I loved the way they worked it. And we now have Don Callis effectively joining the Blackpool Combat Club. I would not have predicted this seriously. Obviously, I did call this weeks ago as the possibility that he would join the BCC, but I was only half kidding. So, lo and behold, half kidding or not, it happened. Don Callis has apparently joined the Blackpool Combat Club. I would love to hear what his reasoning is. I'm going to assume we're going to get that reasoning probably this coming Wednesday. We might even get it this coming Saturday, which is supposed to be at a special Saturday start time of 10/9 Central. I'm not sure why they're being preempted tonight, but apparently they are. We'll see how things go. Yeah, that's just weird. I'm sorry, that's just weird. And even though I called it weeks ago, I'd kind of forgotten about it simply because, think about how long ago it was. It makes no sense to even bother, keeping up with that unless they really try to start foreshadowing it. And they really hadn't foreshadowed it all that heavily. But there you go. So, folks, that was the Dynamite review for May the 10th of 2023. This is definitely one of the more unusual shows, I think. We got a little bit more promo-heavy material this week, because, again, they had to build up the world title main event at Double or Nothing, which is that big fatal four-way. We get Thunder Rosa having returned. Miro is back. You know, we got some great action with that Double Jeopardy match. The Blackpool Combat Club just seems to be making enemies left, right, and center. It's going to be a little crazy here. And then, of course, we've got the TNT Championship situation and all else. I'm not entirely sure where they're going, and I like that. This is one of the reasons why I love AEW. Is like, there are some times where I can predict something, usually if it's just like a few seconds before it's announced, because it's usually something they'll set up for that very show. But for the most part, I have not really been able to coherently predict much of anything AEW does. So far, I've only made 2 accurate predictions. One is the Don Callis thing, which, again, I didn't even predict seriously. I just predicted it as almost a joke. And the only other thing that I did predict legitimately seriously was the Fatal 4-Way match, because I had originally suggested one of 3 possibilities. I think a lot of people will remember this from my earliest videos. I had suggested either a Fatal 4-Way, a gauntlet match, or Jungle Boy versus MJF one-on-one. And they kept building towards the Fatal 4-Way, so I locked that in as my prediction. And yeah, that is what we ultimately got, is that Fatal 4-Way, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. MJF did say one thing absolutely accurate in his video package promo, package. I cannot words today, sue me. When it comes to his promo on that video package, one thing he said that was absolutely accurate. He is going to be in one of the best Fatal 4-Ways, I think, in the company's history. Which, to be fair, that history isn't very long, but they've had a couple of, multi-man matches. I think this is probably going to be one of the best Fatal 4-Ways, at the very least, of the 2020s in any promotion. Simply because, look at the 4 men you have in the ring for this match. You've got MJF, Jungle Boy Jack Perry, Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, 4 guys who know how to use ring psychology, and 3 of which are absolute high flyers, who can do a little bit of everything. MJF is more of a power wrestler and a little bit more submission-based. You've got, Darby, who's just, again, his style isn't smash mouth, it's break bones. I'm honestly surprised this man hasn't crippled himself yet. You've got Sammy Guevara, who is probably as traditional high flyer as you can get. And then you got Jack Perry, who's a little bit of a jack of all trades. He can go to the top rope. He can do, tope suicidas or suicide planches or whatever you want to call them. And he can also do a little bit of power wrestling, and he's definitely got a little bit of submission wrestling in him. I can't wait to see these 4 guys in the ring. I want to see them go at it, and I'm pretty sure MJF is going to retain, at least for the time being, but if they were going to take the belt off of him, I would kind of like to see it be Jungle Boy who gets the title. Because this is the only guy who hasn't held any singles championship at all. MJF is the reigning world champion. Sammy Guevara is a 3-time TNT champion. Darby is at least a 2-time TNT champion. All right, Jungle Boy is a former co-holder of the World Tag Team titles, but I would love to see him make that jump to not just winning a singles belt, but to win the world title. He's had a match against Omega for the world title before. He almost won it then. I know I put out that video asking, is Jungle Boy ready for a run at the top? I think he could potentially be ready. I don't know if he is, but I do want to see him get the chance to prove whether or not he can run with the ball. So, folks, if you like this video, please give it a like. It absolutely helps with the YouTube algorithm, because believe me, the only thing more conniving than MJF is YouTube's algorithm. And ring that notification bell, hit subscribe, leave a comment, question, whatever. I'd love to get some of you guys' thoughts on the video package promos we got from these 4 men going into that Double or Nothing main event. I would love to hear what you think about Don Callis turning on the Elite. I'd love to hear what you guys think about the return of Miro and Thunder Rosa. So, folks, this was your Dynamite review for Wednesday, May the 10th, 2023. I am Warwolf howling out at you. Peace!